Hi, my name is Michael Becker, and welcome to this installment of the M. Cortis Mobile Insights. With me today is Rob Cruz, a principal at Rob Cruz Marketing. Rob has been a leading executive and CMO within the restaurant industry, and he's handled everything from the QSR fast casual restaurant all the way up to fine dining. And we're going to talk a little bit about the role digital can play in helping restaurant executives really transform the guest experience that they offer. So Rob, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Michael, I'm excited to be here.
So let's start out with, before we get into digital and the technicalities of digital, what challenges are restaurant executives facing today?
Well, I think restaurant executives really are feeling the challenge of increased fragmentation in traditional media. Really what's happened is that a lot of the rule book or the playbook that we've used for the last 20 years is really becoming irrelevant in terms of how we talk to consumers.
And can you explain what that means? I mean, you were telling me at one point this idea of points per media and all of that. I mean, like, how is that breaking down and becoming less efficient for the restaurant executive?
Yeah, look, traditionally, traditional media really worked great, right? And television, you'd go run a television ad and you'd break your campaign on a Monday, and boy, by Thursday, you're really feeling the push in your restaurants. What's really happened is that the cost per point of television is really rising faster than the restaurant's ability to grow sales. And what that means is we're becoming less and less media efficient every year. So, to explain that, the cost per point is really the cost of reaching 1% of your audience one time. And so if I'm looking at adults 25, 54, there is I can quantify how many of those adults are in that market, and 1% of that audience seeing that message one time is really what a gross rating point is. Just a way for us to aggregate and talk about how many people are seeing our spots.
And you were saying earlier, so we used to do a lot of television advertising. We'd use those tools for reach. That reach would drive people into the store. We'd serve them the food and they'd get out. And things were great. But then all of a sudden, digital started to emerge, and people's behaviors and expectations of the restaurants have started to change. So, and in terms of they're expecting more engagement, they're expecting what? Can you explain that a little bit? And maybe then start telling us, how does digital play out in this new world of engaging the people we serve?
Yeah, I think, digital really comes across as a much more authentic and in some ways really less manufactured way of communicating. I think what's happened over time is that television ads, you think about it, have really become sort of less and less believable. And there was a time when if you take a really long historical view of this, in the 50s, they were very informative and people, listened and believed advertising. And let's face it, the industry kind of did it to itself. And by industry, I mean the advertising industry. And over time, people really came to not so much really believe the stuff and take it with a grain of salt. And I think digital today is much more authentic and really breaks through that. When you're getting a message from an advertiser, whether it's an email or a text, it's definitely that information is taken much more at face value and I think discounted much less than what you see in the mass media.
But is digital marketing all about just reach and just another form of advertising, or is it transforming the restaurant in ways that very few of us can really get? What's happening there? Maybe you can give Panera as an example. I've heard you speak about that before.
Well, I think, what you're seeing with a number of restaurant companies is really how are they using technology to completely rethink the guest experience. So in the example of a Panera, with being able to go online and order before you get there, order and pay even online, and then be able to walk in the restaurant and have the food sitting there on a shelf just waiting for you to pick up. If you want to grab and go, you can. You think about that. We've had grab and go in convenience stores and stuff for years, but this is now a completely customized grab and go. That really wasn't available prior to having the technology that we have today.
And what that's doing, so like in the case of Panera, I've read that for a non-digitally enabled Panera store, they're seeing digital conversion of about 9% of sales. And for the Panera 2.0 store that's integrated digital seamlessly throughout the POS system, in-store kiosks, amplification of signage in the store, the messaging, the app, et cetera, they're seeing 20 plus conversion rates, but not only the engagement and conversion, but actually increased efficiencies of the overall operations as well. So it seems, Rob, that digital is really transforming the very nature of what does it mean to be a CEO in the modern restaurant. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, I think, and another good example I'll say to you is you look at Domino's Pizza, and I think their latest quarterly earnings, they had their same store sales up 10%, 10.7%, I believe is the number. That's staggering for a mature business. And it would be my contention that really Domino's has become a technology company that happens to serve pizza. And they're really then leveraging all the digital tools to get there. And I think you're going to have kind of this, you're going to see a great divide starting to happen between the companies that really accept this new reality and start moving toward that and moving to take advantage of it, and those that don't.
And what does this reality look like? So in one of our pre-calls, you were throwing around terms like SaaS and API and MarTech stack and different technologies like text messaging, email, and apps and mobile websites, contactless payment. Wow, I mean, it can get really confusing. So if we were to take a step back for our listeners today, how would you as a CMO help kind of organize all of that, and where would you start? How would you recommend someone to start getting, teasing this apart to create some understanding for their business?
Well, I think it's, look, I'm not going to tell you it's a simple process, but I think to be thorough and to go about it right, I think you have to go and really map the customer journey, right? And look at what are all the potential ways that a customer can interact with your brand, and how do they go about, where are all the different places they can see you out there? What are the ways that I can invite them in? What are the ways that they can purchase from me? Are they going to order online? Are they going to actually phone it in? And then the operator has then to put it in the system. And again, we're talking a very broad playing field here. If someone has an iPhone and hits Siri and says, "Hey, there's a couple of ways that comes down," right? They either ask, "Where's the closest Mexican restaurant?" Or they might say, "Where's the closest Taco Bell?" And do you have the infrastructure in place to basically make sure that the answer comes up that you want? Are you helping really facilitate and provide information that the customer is looking for in that instance? It's a really broad playing field right now.
But as a restaurant executive, what do I do? Does that mean I have to go invest tens of millions of dollars and put this all together and spend years doing this, or is there something that I can do to tip my toe on the ground to get started? Where do I start? I mean, it can be really confusing for somebody that isn't necessarily classically digitally trained, if anybody is at all. So I mean, where would one start?
Well, I think after you map that customer journey, you start looking at all those touch points, then the process is really identifying providers in the space who can come in and partner with you. I think what's really changed over time is that there's no longer a need to sort of own, if you will, the infrastructure, to own the technology. You're basically renting it from providers. You own the data ultimately that comes out of it, and that's a really key point of this. But being able to find sort of best in breed providers, who's the best email provider for us and has the functionality we want, who's the best mobile text platform provider, who's the best app developer that we can use. If I'm looking at a system where I say I need a delivery agnostic system, I need to be able to go and find those providers that are the best in each of those, and then get them working together to create a unified system that's best for me.
And I'm not going to be able to, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think one will be able to go out and buy that unified system. That unicorn doesn't exist, but rather each company, given its own culture, its own existing investments, its own existing infrastructure, its own strategies and plans, will want to build out that MarTech themselves. That will become part of their core competency to then be able to plug and play the different pieces as they evolve with them and as those pieces evolve to engage the consumer in a unique way. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the restaurant the restaurant brand needs to have a very clear vision of what they're trying to accomplish. And then when they start bringing in the various partners, in essence, you have to sit down with them. And I've done this, where to say, hey guys, you're all in a sandbox together and you all need to play nice together. So we're going to freely sort of exchange information because it's our information. You're providing a service for us. We're going to pay you for that service. And that's, in essence, the business that they're in. I get a little hesitant of providers that say, oh, we have this turnkey solution and we've got all the partners that you need. I think generally that sort of core competency around who's best for us in each of the, kind of functional areas needs to be left up to the restaurant company.
Okay, so where do I start then? So what is in fact digital, and what kind of benefits can I get from it, and where does it work? And can you give us some concrete examples? Like I've heard some studies before that if you integrate contactless payment, the idea of being able to tap my phone with Apple Pay or swipe my watch against the point of sale terminal, that can increase the flow through traffic at the register by almost as 8% or more. What other benefits can a marketer be, getting out of integrating digital? And again, where do they start? Do they have to build this comprehensive system, or are there some just individual point solutions they can start focusing on now to create the efficiencies that are necessary for their business?
Yeah, you mentioned you mentioned a great operational benefit just by the speed of payment and being able, to increase your throughput, which is huge for restaurant operators. As a marketing guy, I often, I'd spend my time thinking about, how do I communicate with my customers? How do I find new customers? And how can I communicate them in the most efficient way possible? If I'm really looking at doing this, I think kind of the place I start with is really ultimately a database. I've got to have a database engine where I can put customer information, contact information, and you can start simple. It's just maybe a name and an email. It's a name and an email address, or and then how do I layer in transaction level detail from the POS and start layering that in with each customer. And then I think about sort of the contact points. And then when I have that information, well, how do I connect with those folks? And to me, there's kind of three sort of, basic ways. I need to have an email platform. I need to have a text platform, and I need to have a mobile app. And I think really with those three, then I built what I call a delivery agnostic system where I can ask the consumer, how would you like to receive offers and information from us? And I really don't care which one of those three perhaps that it is. I know my ability to deliver a message to them through any of those systems is getting pretty close to zero per incremental communication.
And what about the mobile web, by the way? You see, is that part of the mix as well? Do you see or no?
I think mobile web is huge because because it allows people to, when you think about, what's key today, it's really information on demand. And it's not so much someone sitting at home on a laptop and then says, oh yeah, where are we going to eat today? Not saying that, that does happen, but more and more, right? You're already out and about, and then it's, okay, where are we going for dinner? Well, how are you going to check? Well, you're not pulling up your laptop in your car. Someone sitting there is pulling out their mobile phone and is running that search. And they might hit, something like a Siri on an iPhone and say, please tell me where are the closest restaurants. Well, you've got to be working with partners and stuff who are making sure that you're teed up at the top of that list, or in essence, you're not even in the consideration set.
Now, and does mobile just happen in isolation, or not mobile or digital? Does it just happen in isolation, or does it also integrate with your other media? So, for instance, you talked about using text messaging or email as a means of engaging the individual. Taking people from that rented audience of media into an owned conversation, into a messaging channel. But how does one get started with that, and how can you take advantage of, say, your television advertising or your in-store audience to be able to really turn all of that into a really valuable asset for the business as well?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Michael. And I think it's kind of one of the mistakes that the industry, and in all fairness, a lot of industries have made. They'll create a chief digital officer as if there's something magical happening over here and it's like it's going to exist in a silo. It absolutely cannot, and really everyone in the C-suite needs to have a certain competency around digital technologies and their capabilities, because it really needs to inform sort of the entire strategy, right? So if I want to do online, mobile ordering in a restaurant, that's not just a marketing initiative, right? Because that's going to impact finance, IT, the security. We're taking mobile payments, lots of things. So everyone really needs to be engaged from that standpoint.
Okay. And what about, for instance, putting mobile call to actions into table tents and on posters in the store or on the television? Is that something you want to be doing in terms of amplifying that media, or is it not really have that great of effect?
That is, that's one of the huge examples I think that restaurants have as a brick and mortar capability, where we can certainly go out on our external media and you can put call to actions like text, a certain code to this number and sign up for our mobile offers. And you'll certainly get people doing that. But there's also a huge opportunity just with the current traffic that's coming through the restaurants. One QSR chain, quick service restaurant chain that I work for, we did on average 4,400 customers per week through that restaurant. So that's an enormous opportunity to sign people up into and really move them from what I call, rented media, where with television, I'm paying every time I'm out there, really over to get a customer in a database where you own that asset. And then again, your incremental cost per communication via email or text is getting close to zero. And I think that's really the big play that a lot of brick and mortar and particularly restaurants need to be doing today.
So digital is really a much more transformative mechanism within a business. It's not just about marketing. It ties in IT, it ties in operation, it ties in the C-suite, and it's really becoming quite an important thing. And so with that in mind, let's do a quick little kind of almost promotional pitch for you. Your role, if I understand it, is really being that bridge between having been an experienced CMO of a wide range of different types of restaurants, but also you've trained yourself, in this new world of digital, and you're able to translate those two and help build that roadmap for restaurants, everything from the customer journey to partner acquisition and enablement to actually evaluation and how that can play itself out into the business and be measured in a way to really demonstrate effectiveness to those that are, helping, invest in and support the restaurant to be successful. So if someone's interested in this, and first of all, did I get that right? Is that in fact what you do? And if so, and if somebody wants to, leverage your services and expertise and help, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, thanks, Michael. Look, I've spent over 25 years in the restaurant space and really understand really the language of restaurants, how restaurants, really how they make money, and that's really key, I think. And really what I do now often is I work with both restaurants and I work with a lot of tech firms who like to sell into restaurants. It's a tough vertical to get into. Again, there's some unique challenges, I think, with the restaurant space. So I help facilitate those conversations and help get them to the table. I'm a certified mobile marketer. I really understand where digital is going and how we can use it today, and what's the best way for a restaurant company to really leverage the technology that's out there today.
Awesome. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more and leverage your expertise?
Yeah, it's real easy. They can just email me at cruzrob@gmail.com.
Fantastic. Now, also, too, hopefully down the road, we can start inviting you in to dig into specific digital capabilities like the use of an app or mobile web or messaging to really understand those elements, as well as the more broader level ways that a restaurant can embrace and leverage and transform their business with digital. This has been fantastic, Rob. I really am grateful for you spending your time with us today, and I appreciate it.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for having me today. I've enjoyed it. I really look forward to coming back again.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Take care.